How we going? It's me, Salty, and welcome to the stream. Tonight we're going to be starting a new book called Grass for His Pillow, which is a sequel to Across the Nightingale Floor, which we finished last week. Looks so cozy. Oh, thank y'all. I was just looking at my camera before. I saw, looks so cozy. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I got my robe, dressing gown on. GMTA. But yeah, it got down to 9.5 degrees last night. Celsius. Let me see what that is. That's 49 Fahrenheit. Which is a bit cool for where I live usually. Yeah, I'm out here flexing on. I've had this robe for a while. It's actually, when you hold it up to a light, it looks a little bit threadbare. But yeah, how am I? Look, I'll be honest. I've been a bit better. My grandmother is in hospital. She's not doing well at the moment. But I like to sleep with the window open when it's that temp. Yeah, I have the window open, and I just. I say, yeah, it's kind of her time, really. But I went and saw her the other day, so that was nice. I got to talk to her in that. Yes, it turned out that fall she had was a bit more serious than we thought, and unfortunately, it looks like it's going to be. Yeah, it's not recoverable because she's just unconscious. So I think that's pretty much it. Yes. So yeah, I mean, we all knew it was kind of going to happen sometime. I just didn't think it was going to be so quick. Thanks, Mal. Thank you, everyone. I have such sweet beans watching me. It's good. Yeah. Well, thank you, Kitty. Yeah. Oh, that's what I was going to do. I'll give Mal another shout out if there's more viewers later, but yeah.
Glory to you and your house.
Glory to you, Mal. Mal streams. Mal knows about space. And has a doggo. And let me just try and remember doggo's name. I can't, sorry. Really happy to be old enough to travel to see your grandpa. That'll be nice, Kitty. Yeah, well, yeah, I hope you get the chance. That'd be good. Hello, Forrest. How you doing? Hope everyone's well.
Timoid has given a tier 1 gift sub to Forest Spirit Timo. They have given % gift % subs to the channel. % message %.
Timo. Thank you for gifting Forest. Oh, that's so nice. Going on day 2 upright. Kitty, that's so good. Yeah, Timoid's such a sweetheart. Yes, I'm glad you're staying upright. It's good. Let me just. Oh. Here's the cover for the next book. You would throw bitties, but you have to refill when you get monies again. That's okay, kitty. Don't worry about it. Yes.
Take a fucking sip, babes.
I will. Thank you, Team Wide. Notice they have an art of a younger gentleman who I believe is supposed to represent Takeo, probably. And I imagine this is supposed to represent Kade on the back, maybe. But yes, beautiful, beautiful artwork. Just it's essentially three things: just the face, a sword, and like some trees with, I think, snowy trees, and then just blue, and it's really nice. And it's the kind of book that makes you want to pick it up and take a look. I'll have this sip. I don't have tea because, I just wasn't feeling it tonight. I had fish from the fish and chip shop, and I shouldn't have done because I should have had something healthier. Fish is healthy, just that the batter it's covered in is not. Yeah, anyway. Ari rated Maisie last night, and I checked them out really quickly, and she has like this super crisp camera. I'm jealous. Like, she's streaming in 720p and has this super crisp camera. I'm just like, that's amazing. I mean, half of it's probably lighting. I'd probably get a lot better result if I lighted my face more, but bright lights in my face is not, I don't like it. And it distracts me too much. Alright, so I'll just take the dust jacket off. Oddly enough, I don't want to get the dust jacket dirty. Oops. I also had a look at, because this is hardcover, I had a look at Shogun, actually, which was a book I read last year. And the hardcover value for like a first edition, like good condition Shogun is like $4,000 or something like that. I'm just like, whoa. Hardcover popular books be making some cash. Not that I would ever sell Shogun, because it was my granddad's. But yeah, I think mine's the 3rd edition. Hello, Team Lloyd. Hope you're doing well. UTC is the only time zone, huh? Well, we know where Team Lloyd lives. Okay. So, whoops. Oh. Grass for His Pillow by Leon Hearn. And we have... Oh, you can't see them, which means I can't read them. Just the clan symbols. You got the Tori, Mariyama. Next one. Oh yeah. Seshu, Shirakawa, Tohan, and Arai. Can't see them because the zoom on the camera is fixed. A small poem. On nights when wind mixing in, the rain falls. On nights when rain mixing in, the snow falls. Yamanoe no Oruka, a dialogue on poverty, from the country of the 8 islands. Translation by Hiroaki Sato. Well, Hiroaki Sato. It's a very pretty book. Did you get it? Okay, so the foreword. These events took place in the year following the death of Otori Shigeru in the Tohan stronghold of Inuyama. Darn. The leader of the clan. The leader of the Tohan clan, Aida Sadamu, was killed in revenge by Shigeru's adopted son, Otori Takeo. Or so it was widely believed, and the Tohan overthrown by Arai Daichi, one of the Sesshu clan from Kumamoto, who took advantage of the chaos following the fall of Inuyama to seize control of the three countries. Arai had hoped to form an alliance with Takeo and arrange his marriage to Shirakawa Keide, now the heir to the Maruyama and Shirakawa domains. However, torn between Shigeru's last commands and the demands of his real father's family, the Kikuta of the tribe, Takeo gave up his inheritance and marriage with Keide, with whom he was deeply in love, to go with the tribe, feeling himself bound to them by blood and by oath. Otori Shigeru was buried at Terayama, a remote mountain temple in the heart of the Middle Country. After the battles of Inuyama and Kushimoto, Arai visited the temple to pay his respects to his fallen ally and to confirm the new alliances. Here, Takeo and Keide met for the last time. And if you recall, it was actually Keide that killed Aida Sadamu, not Takeo. She stabbed him in the eye. Once again, map of the three countries, which you can't see because of the focus. I'm going to... Oh, there we go. Oh, wait a minute. There we go. Okay. So, Hagi and Inuyama. And there's all the mountains. And Mino was somewhere in the mountains around Inuyama, I think, somewhere around there. So yes, they had quite a long way to journey. Yeah, it's a good map. Oh, Mino's even further east, rather. Okay. Wow. Damn, Shigeru really went out of his way to find Mino. We have a list of characters. I don't know whether we want to go through. Oh, your computer does not see the drive? It's in map. Okay, you might have to open up, what's it called? Don't really want to do tech support right now. Disk management is what you need to open, I think. And you might need to assign it a drive letter. If you can look up how to, access disk management in Windows, you'll be able to assign it a drive letter. We have a lot of characters here, which is kind of pointless to read out because there's no context. All you need to know is that Takeo's horse is called Raku. Chapter 1. Shirakawa Keide lay deeply asleep in the state. Oh no. Raku. My pronunciation's not very good. Shirakawa Keide lay deeply asleep in the state close to the unconsciousness that the Kikuta can deliver with their gaze. Ah, that's right, because last week, at the end of the book, Takeo put her to sleep with his magical ninja gaze. Thank you, Forrest. The night passed. The stars paled as the dawn came. The sounds of the temple rose and fell around her, but she did not stir. She did not hear her companion, Shizuka, call anxiously to her from time to time, trying to wake her. She did not feel Shizuka's hand on her forehead. She did not hear Lord Arai Daichi's men as they came with increasing impatience to the veranda, telling Shizuka that the warlord was waiting to speak to Lady Shirakawa. Her breathing was peaceful and calm, her features as still as a mask's. Towards evening, the quality of her sleep seemed to change. Her eyelids flickered, and her lips appeared to smile. Her fingers, which had been curled gently against her palms, spread. Be patient, he will come for you. Keide was dreaming that she had been turned to ice. The words echoed lucidly in her head. There was no fear in the dream, just the feeling of being held by something cool and white in a world that was silent, frozen, and enchanted. Her eyes opened. It was still light. The shadows told her it was evening. A wind bell rang softly once, and then the air was still. The day she had no recollection of must have been a warm one. Her skin was damp beneath her hair. Birds were chattering from the eaves, and she could hear the clip of the swallows' beaks as they caught the last insects of the day. Soon they would fly south. It was already autumn. The sound of the birds reminded her of the painting Takeo had given her many weeks before, at this same place, a sketch of the wild forest bird that had made her think of freedom. It had been lost along with everything else she possessed. Her wedding robes, all her other clothes, when the castle at Inuyama burned. She possessed nothing. Shizuka had found some old robes for her at the house they had stayed in, and had borrowed combs and other things. She had never been in such a place before, a merchant's house, smelling of fermenting soy, full of people, who she tried to keep away from, though every now and then the maids came to peep at her through the screens. She was afraid everyone would see what had happened to her on the night the castle fell. She had killed a man. She had lain with another. She had fought alongside him, wielding the dead man's sword. She could not believe she had done these things. Sometimes she thought she was bewitched, as people said. They said of her that any man who desired her died. And it was true. Men had died, but not Takeo. Ever since she had been assaulted by the guard when she was a hostage in Noguchi Castle, she had been afraid of all men. Her terror of Aida had driven her to defend herself against him. But she had had no fear of Takeo. She had only wanted to hold him closer. Since their first meeting in Suwano, her body had longed for his. She had wanted him to touch her. She had wanted the feel of his skin against hers. Now, as she remembered that night, is B. I forgot I left that on for Avalon. Hello B, how are you, Petal? Hello Alyssa, hope you're well. Yes, I'm reading a new book tonight. It's the sequel to Across the Nightingale Floor. So yes, Kada is dreaming, and she's just remembering all the stuff that's happened to her. Only for 5, so much task. Oh, B, I hope you stay dry as possible, and I hope you don't overdo it, because I know you're not feeling great. Unless you are feeling great tonight, which is fantastic. Yes, I turned that back on for Avalon. B, still sicky, but you're caressing this. B, you're going to have to train a work nest. I don't know, train your work colleagues. I know some of them eat crayons, but still. Yeah. Oh, jeez. I don't know why managers always mess with the most productive members. Always do. I don't know why. I've only ever known like one genuinely decent manager, and that's because he left the team alone and sheltered them from the bull crap of the management above. This is my new variant of sadism. Oh, you're going that route. Make it dependent on you, then you dip. Goes back to the group projects in school. Yeah, and TAFE. Or college, rather. Where are we? That's right. Katie was dreaming of Takeo. I'm not surprised that she only trusted Takeo, seeing as he was like 16 or something, so not like barely a man. And it's like all these older men were after her, and it's like, ew. No, she's 15, go away. Anyway, that's right. Now, as she remembered that night, she understood with renewed clarity that she could marry no one but him. Okay, B, have good task. Be safe and well. She could marry no one but him. She would love no one but him. I will be patient, she promised. But where had those words come from? She turned her head slightly and saw Shizuka's outline on the edge of the veranda. Beyond the woman rose the ancient trees of the shrine. The air smelled of cedars and dust. The temple bell tolled the evening hour. Keide did not speak. She did not want to talk to anyone or hear any voice. She wanted to go back to that place of ice where she had been sleeping. Then, beyond the specks of dust that floated in the last rays of the sun, she saw something. A spirit, she thought, yet not only a spirit, for it had substance. It was there, undeniable and real, gleaming like fresh snow. She stared, half rose, but in the moment that she recognized her, the white goddess, the all-compassionate, the all-merciful, was gone. What is it? Shizuka heard the movement and ran to her side. Keide looked at Shizuka and saw the deep concern in her eyes. She realized how precious this woman had become to her, her closest, indeed her only friend. Nothing. A half dream. Are you all right? How do you feel? I don't know, I feel... Keide's voice died away. She gazed at Shizuka for several moments. Have I been asleep all day? What happened to me? He shouldn't have done it to you, Shizuka said, her voice sharp with concern and anger. It was Takeo. Shizuka nodded. I had no idea he had that skill. It's a trait of the Kikuta family. The last thing I remember is his eyes. We gazed at each other, and then I fell asleep. After a pause, Keide went on. He's gone, hasn't he? My uncle, Muto Kenji, and the Kikuta master, Kotaro, came for him last night, Shizuka replied. And I will never see him again? Keide remembered her desperation the previous night, before the long, deep sleep. She had begged Takeo not to leave her. She had been terrified of her future without him, angry and wounded by his rejection of her. But all that turbulence had been stilled. You must forget him, Shizuka said, taking Keide's hand in hers and stroking it gently. From now on, his life and yours cannot touch. Keide smiled slightly. I cannot forget him, she was thinking, nor can he ever be taken from me. I have slept in ice. I have seen the white goddess. Are you all right? Shizuka said again with urgency. Not many people survive the Kikuta sleep. They are usually dispatched before they wake. I don't know what it has done to you. It hasn't harmed me, but it has alerted me in some way, or altered me in some way. I feel as if I don't know anything, as if I have to learn everything anew. Shizuka knelt before her, puzzled, her eyes searching Keide's face. What will you do now? Where will you go? Will you return to Inuyama with Arai? I think I should go home to my parents. I must see my mother. I'm so afraid she will have died while we were delayed in Inuyama for all that time. I will leave in the morning. I suppose you should inform Lord Arai. I understand your anxiety, Shizuka replied, but Arai may be reluctant to let you go. Then I shall have to persuade him, Kaede said calmly. First, I must eat something. Will you ask them to prepare some food? And bring me some tea, please. Lady. Shizuka bowed to her and stepped off the veranda. As she walked away, Kaede heard the plaintive notes of a flute, played by some unseen person in the garden behind the temple. She thought she knew the player, one of the young monks, from the time when they had first visited the temple to view the famous Seshu paintings, but she could not recall his name. The music spoke to her of the inevitability of suffering and loss. The trees stirred as the wind rose, and owls began to hoot from the mountain. Shizuka came back with the tea and poured a cup for Kaede. She drank as if she were tasting it for the first time, every drop having its own distinct, smoky flavour against her tongue. And when the old woman, who looked after the guests, brought rice and vegetables cooked with bean curd, it was as if she had never tasted food before. She marvelled silently at the new powers that had been awakened within her. Lord Arai wishes to speak with you before the end of the day. I told him you were not well, but he insisted. If you do not feel like facing him now, I will go and tell him again. I am not sure we can treat Lord Arai in that fashion, Kaede said. If he commands me, I must go to him. He is very angry, Shizuka said in a low voice. He is offended and outraged by Takeo's disappearance. He sees in it the loss of two important alliances. He will almost certainly have to fight the Otori now, without Takeo on his side. He'd hoped for a quick marriage between you. Don't speak of it, Kaede interrupted. She finished the last of the rice, placed the eating sticks down on the tray, and bowed in thanks for the food. Shizuka sighed. Arai has no real understanding of the tribe, how they work, what demands they place on those who belong to them. Did he never know that you were from the tribe? He knew I had ways of finding things out, of passing on messages. He was happy enough to make use of my skills in forming the alliance with Lord Shigeru and Lady Maruyama. He had heard of the tribe, but like most people he thought they were little more than a guild. That they should have been involved in Aida's death shocked him profoundly, even though he profited from it. She paused and then said quietly, He has lost all trust in me. I think he wonders how he slept with me so many times without being assassinated himself. Well, we will certainly never sleep together again. That is all over. Are you afraid of him? Has he threatened you? He is furious with me, Shizuka replied. He feels I have betrayed him. Worse, made a fool out of him. I do not think he will ever forgive me. A bitter note crept into her voice. I have been his closest confidant, his lover, his friend, since I was hardly more than a child. I have borne him 2 sons, yet he would have me put to death in an instant were it not for your presence. I will kill any man who tries to harm you, Kaede said, Shizuka smiled. How fierce you look when you say that. Men die easily. Men die easily. Keide's voice was flat. From the prick of a needle, the thrust of a knife. You taught me that. But you are yet to use those skills, I hope, Shizuka replied. Though you fought well at Inuyama, Takeo owes you his life. Keide was silent for a moment. Then she said in a low voice, I did more than fight with the sword. You do not know all of it. Shizuka stared at her. What are you telling me? That it was you who killed Aida? She whispered. Keide nodded. Takeo took his head, but he was already dead. I did what you told me. He was going to rape me. Shizuka grasped her hands. Never let anyone know that. Not one of these warriors, not even Arai, would let you live. I felt no guilt or remorse, Keide said. I never did a less shameful deed. Not only did I protect myself, but the deaths of many were avenged. Lord Shigeru, my kinswoman, Lady Maruyama, and her daughter, and all the other innocent people whom Aida tortured and murdered. Nevertheless, if this became generally known, you would be punished for it. Yeah, I know, right, kitty? If it was a dude, would have been fine. Men would think the world turned upside down if women started taking up arms and seeking revenge. My world is already turned upside down, Keide said. Still, I must go and see Lord Arai. Bring me... She broke off and laughed. I was going to say bring me some clothes, but I have none. I have nothing. You have a horse, Shizuka replied. Takeo left the grey for you. He left me Raku? Keide smiled, a true smile that illuminated her face. She stared into the distance, her eyes dark and thoughtful. Lady? Shizuka touched her on the shoulder. Comb out my hair and send a message to Lord Arai to say I will visit him directly. It was almost completely dark by the time they left the women's rooms and went towards the main guest rooms where Arai and his men were staying. Lights gleamed from the temple and, further up the slope, beneath the trees, men stood with flaring torches round Lord Shigeru's grave. Even at this hour people came to visit it, bringing incense and offerings, placing lamps and candles on the ground around the stone, seeking the help of the dead man, who every day became more of a god to them. Damn, it's only been a week. He sleeps beneath the covering of flame, Keide thought, herself praying silently to Shigeru's spirit for guidance, while she pondered what she would say to Arai. She was the heir to both Shirakawa and Maruyama. She knew Arai would be seeking some strong alliance with her, probably some marriage that would bind her into the power he was amassing. They had spoken a few times during her stay at Inuyama, and again on the journey, but Arai's attention had been taken up with securing the countryside and his strategies for the future. He had not shared these with her, beyond expressing his desire for the Otori marriage to take place. Once, a lifetime ago it seemed now, she had wanted to be more than a pawn in the hands of warriors who commanded her fate. Now, with the new-found strength that the icy sleep had given her, she resolved again to take control of her life. I need time, she thought. I must do nothing rashly. I must go home before I make any decisions. One of Arai's men, she remembered his name was Niwa, greeted her at the veranda's edge and led her to the doorway. The shutters all stood open. Arai sat at the end of the room, 3 of his men next to him. Niwa spoke her name, and the warlord looked up at her. For a moment they studied each other. She held his gaze and felt power's strong pulse in her veins. Then she dropped to her knees and bowed to him, resenting the gesture, yet knowing she had to appear to submit. He returned her bow, and they both sat up at the same time. Kaede felt his eyes on her. She raised her head and gave him the same unflinching look. He could not meet it. Her heart was pounding at her audacity. In the past, she had both liked and trusted the man in front of her. Now, she saw changes in his face. The lines had deepened around his mouth and eyes. He had been both pragmatic and flexible, but now he was in the grip of his intense desire for power. Here we go. Not far from her parents' home, the Shirakawa flowed through vast limestone caves, where the water had formed pillars and statues. As a child, she was taken there every year to worship the goddess, who lived within one of these pillars under the mountain. The statue had a fluid, living shape, as though the spirit that dwelt within were trying to break out from beneath the covering of lime. She thought of that stone covering now. Was power a limy river, calcifying those who dared to swim in it? Arai's physical size and strength made her quail inwardly, reminding her of that moment of helplessness in Aida's arms, of the strength of men who could force women in any way they wanted. Never let them use that strength, came the thought, and then always be armed. A taste came into her mouth, as sweet as persimmon, as strong as blood, the knowledge and taste of power. Was this what drove men to clash endlessly with each other? To enslave and destroy each other? Why should a woman not have that too? She stared at the places on Arai's body, where the needle and the knife had pierced Aida, had opened him up to the world he tried to dominate, and let his life's blood leak away. I must never forget it, she told herself. Men also can be killed by women. I killed the most powerful warlord in the 3 countries. All her upbringing had taught her to defer to men, to submit to their will and their greater intelligence. Her heart was beating so strongly she thought she might faint. She breathed deeply, using the skills that Shizuka had taught her, and felt the blood settle in her veins. Lord Arai, tomorrow I will leave for Shirakawa. I would be very grateful if you will provide men to escort me home. I would prefer you to stay in the east, he said slowly. But that is not what I want to talk to you about first. His eyes narrowed as he stared at her. Autori's disappearance. Can you shed any light on this extraordinary occurrence? I believe I have established my right to power. I was already in alliance with Shigeru. How can young Autori ignore all obligations to me and to his dead father? How can he disobey and walk away? And where is he gone? My men have been searching the district all day, as far as Yamagata. He's completely vanished. I do not know where he is, she replied. I'm told he spoke to you last night before he left. Yes, she said simply. He must have explained to you at least. He was bound by other obligations. Kaede felt sorrow build within her as she spoke. He did not intend to insult you. Indeed, she could not remember Takeo mentioning Arai to her, but she did not say this. Obligations to the so-called tribe? Arai had been controlling his anger, but now it burst fresh into his voice, into his eyes. He moved his head slightly, and she guessed he was looking past her to where Shizuka knelt in the shadows on the veranda. What do you know of them? Very little, she replied. It was with their help that Lord Takeo climbed into Inuyama. I suppose we are all in their debt in that respect. Speaking Takeo's name made her shiver. She recalled the feel of his body against hers at that moment when they both expected to die. Her eyes darkened, her face softened. Arai was aware of it, without knowing the reason, and when he spoke again, she heard something else in his voice besides rage. Another marriage can be arranged for you. There are other young men of the Otori, cousins to Shigeru. I will send envoys to Hagi. I am in mourning for Lord Shigeru, she replied. I cannot consider marriage to anyone. I will go home and recover from my grief. Will anyone ever want to marry me, knowing my reputation? She wondered, and could not help following with the thought. Takeo did not die. She had thought Arai would argue further, but after a moment he concurred. Maybe it's best that you go to your parents. I will send for you when I return to Inuyama. We will discuss your marriage then. Will you make Inuyama your capital? Yes, I intend to rebuild the castle. In the flickering light, his face was set and brooding. Kaede said nothing. He spoke again abruptly. But to return to the tribe, I had not realized how strong their influence must be to make Takeo walk away from such a marriage, such an inheritance, and then to conceal him completely. To tell you the truth, I had no idea what I was dealing with. He glanced again towards Shizuka. He will kill her, she thought. It's more than just anger at Takeo's disobedience. His self-esteem has been deeply wounded too. He must suspect Shizuka has been spying on him for years. I mean, frankly, that part is true. She wondered what happened to the love and desire that had existed between them. Had it all dissolved overnight? Did the years of service, the trust and loyalty all come to nothing? Betrayal will do that. I shall make it my business to find out about them, he went on, almost as if he were speaking to himself. There must be people who know, who will talk. I cannot let such an organization exist. They will undermine my power as the white ant chews through wood. Just because you're paranoid doesn't mean they aren't out to watch you, lol. Yeah, but they're watching everyone. But yeah. I don't think he's going to have much success, to be honest. But let's find out. Kaede said, I believe it was you who sent Muto Shizuka to me to protect me. I owe my life to that protection, and I believe I kept faith with you in Noguchi Castle. Strong bonds exist between us, and they shall be unbroken. Whomever I marry will swear allegiance to you. Shizuka will remain in my service, and will come with me to my parents' home. He looked at her then, and again she met his gaze with ice in her eyes. It's barely 13 months since I killed a man for your sake, he said. You were hardly more than a child. You have changed. I have been made to grow up, she replied. She made an effort not to think of her borrowed robe, her complete lack of possessions. I am the heir to a great domain, she told herself. She continued to hold his eyes until he reluctantly inclined his head. Very well. I will send men with you to Shirakawa, and you may take the Muto woman. Lord Arai. Only then did she drop her eyes and bow. Arai called to Niwa to make arrangements for the following day, and Kaede bade him good night, speaking with great deference. She felt she had come out of the encounter well. She could afford to pretend that all power lay on his side. She returned to the women's rooms with Shizuka, both of them silent. The old woman had already spread out the beds, and now she brought sleeping garments for them before helping Shizuka undress Kaede. Wishing them good night, she retired to the adjoining room. Shizuka's face was pale, and her demeanour more subdued than Kaede had ever known it. She touched Kaede's hand and whispered, "Thank you," but said nothing else. When they were both lying beneath the cotton quilts, as mosquitoes whined around their heads and moths fluttered against the lamps, Kaede could feel the other woman's body rigid next to hers, and knew Shizuka was struggling with grief. Yet she did not cry. Kaede reached out and put her arms around Shizuka, holding her closely without speaking. She shared the same deep sorrow, but no tears came to her eyes. She would allow nothing to weaken the power that was coming to life within her. End of chapter 1. Doing alright? Chapter 2. The next morning, palanquins and an escort had been prepared for the women. They left as soon as the sun was up. Remembering the advice of her kinswoman, Lady Mariama, Kaede stepped delicately into the palanquin, as though she were as frail and powerless as most women, but she made sure the grooms brought Takeo's horse from the stable, and, once they were on the road, she opened the waxed paper curtains so she could look out. The swaying movement was intolerable to her, and even being able to see did not prevent sickness coming over her. At the first rest stop, at Yamagata, she was so dizzy she could hardly walk. She could not bear to look at food, and when she drank a little tea it made her vomit immediately. Her body's weakness infuriated her, seeming to undermine her newly discovered feeling of power. Shizuka led her to a small room in the rest house, bathed her face with cold water, and made her lie down for a while. The sickness passed as quickly as it had come, and she was able to drink some red bean soup and a bowl of tea. The sight of the black palanquin, however, made her feel queasy again. "Bring me the horse," she said. "I will ride." "You go, girl." The groom lifted her onto Raku's back, and Shizuka mounted nimbly behind her, and so they rode for the rest of the morning, saying little, each wrapped in her own thoughts, but taking comfort from the other's closeness. After they left Yamagata, the road began to climb steeply. In places it was stepped with huge flat stones. There were already signs of autumn, though the sky was clear blue and the air warm. Beech, sumac, and maple were beginning to turn gold and vermilion. I love that word, vermilion. I just think of it as awesome red. Strings of wild geese flew high above them. The forest deepened, still and airless. The horse walked delicately, its head low as it picked its way up the steps. The men were alert and uneasy. Since the overthrow of Aida and the Tohan, the countryside was filled with masterless men of all ranks who had resorted to banditry rather than swear new allegiances. The horse was strong and fit. Despite the heat and the climb, its coat was hardly darkened with sweat when they stopped again at the small rest house at the top of the pass. It was a little past midday. The horses were led away to be fed and watered, the men retired to the shade trees around the well, and an old woman spread mattresses on the floor of the matted room so Keide might rest for an hour or two. Keide lay down, thankful to be able to stretch out. The light in the room was dim and green. Huge cedars shut out most of the glare. In the distance, she could hear the cool trickle of the spring and voices, the men talking quietly. Occasionally, a ripple of laughter, Shizuka chatting to someone in the kitchen. At first, Shizuka's voice was bright and gossipy, and Keide was glad that she seemed to be recovering her spirits. But then it went low, and the person to whom she was speaking responded in the same vein. Keide could no longer make out anything they said. Vermilion is one of those colours that's entirely wrong in your head, makes you think of something, not what it means. Still, it's a cool word. It has flow. Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of odd. The word doesn't look red in my mind. The word looks sort of green and blue, aside from the M. After a while, the conversation ceased. Shizuka came quietly into the room and lay down next to Keide. Who were you talking to? Shizuka turned her head so she could speak directly into Keide's ear. A cousin of mine works here. You have cousins everywhere. That's how it is with the tribe. Best she can get is an orangey yellow. Oh, okay. Keide was silent for a moment. Then she said, Don't other people suspect who you are and want to... Want to what? Well, get rid of you. Shizuka laughed. No one dares. We have infinitely more ways of getting rid of them. And no one ever knows anything about us for sure. They have their suspicions. But you may have noticed, both my Uncle Kenji and I can appear in many different guises. The tribe are hard to recognize, in addition to possessing many other arts. Will you tell me more about them? Keide was fascinated by this world that lay in the shadows of the world she knew. I can tell you a little. Not everything. Later, when we cannot be overheard. From outside, a crow called harshly. That's what the crows sound like here. Shizuka said, I learned 2 things from my cousin. One is that Takeo has not left Yamagata. They're supposed to be intelligent creatures, but that's all they do. If only. So glad you finished drinking. Good stuff. Okay. Okay. Yes, Australian crows, or at least the ones in my region, don't have a lot of variation in their calls. Basically. Yes, I've only ever done that once in my life. That was in high school when my friend made me laugh suddenly. It was unfortunate because I was drinking milk at the time. Okay. Shizuka said, I learned 2 things from my cousin. One is that Takeo has not left Yamagata. Arai has search parties out and guards on the highway. They will be concealing him within the town. The crow cried again. I might have passed his hiding place today, Keide thought. After a long moment, she said, What was the second thing? Did find a few years ago that birds have regional accents, and also if you transplant a bird, it will learn the new accent. There you go. I learnt that cows have accents, apparently. What was the second thing? An accident may occur on the road. What sort of accident? To me, it seems Arai does not want to get rid of me, as you put it, but it is planned to look like an accident, a brigand attack, something like that. He cannot bear that I should live but he does not wish to offend you outright. You must leave. Kade's voice rose with urgency. As long as you are with me, he knows where to find you. Shush, Shizuka warned. I'm only telling you so you won't do anything foolish. What would be foolish? To use your knife to try to defend me. I would do that, Kade said. I know, but you must keep your boldness and those skills hidden. Someone is traveling with us who will protect me. More than one, probably. Leave the fighting to them. Who is it? If my lady can guess, I'll give her a present, Shizuka said lightly. What happened to your broken heart? Kade asked, curious. I mended it with rage, Shizuka replied. Then she spoke more seriously. I may never love a man as much again, but I have done nothing shameful. I am not the one who has acted with dishonor. Before, I was bound to him, a hostage to him. In cutting me off from him, he has set me free. Mending with rage, mood from younger days. I'm trying very hard not to do that these days. Very hard. You should leave me, Kade said. How can I leave you now? You need me more than ever. Kade lay still. Why more than ever now? Lady, you must know. Your bleeding is late. Your face is softer. Your hair thicker. The sickness, followed by hunger. Shizuka's voice was soft, filled with pity. Kade's heart began to race. The knowledge lay beneath her skin, but she could not bring herself to face it. What will I do? Whose child is it? Not Aida's. Bit of a content warning, chat. I'm going to be saying the R word a little bit because it's in the book. But honestly, I'm going to trust this author more and more. So yeah, just a little bit of a content warning there. I killed Aida before he could rape me. If it's true there is a child, it can only be Takeo's. When? Shizuka whispered. The night Aida died. Takeo came to my room. We both expected to die. Shizuka breathed out. I sometimes think he is touched by madness. Not madness. Bewitchment, maybe, Kade said. It's as if we were both under a spell ever since we met in Suwano. You'll get bigger and then you'll get kicked in the bladder and lungs and then you'll enter 18 years of service. Hey, at least she's rich. Well, my uncle and I are partly to blame for that. We should never have brought you together. There was nothing you or anyone could have done to prevent it, Kade said. Despite herself, a quiet intimation of joy stirred within her. If it were Aida's child, I would know what to do, Shizuka said. I would not hesitate. There are things I can give you that will get rid of it. But Takeo's child is my own kin, my own blood. Kade said nothing. The child may inherit Takeo's gifts, she was thinking. Those gifts that make him valuable. Everyone wanted to use him for some purpose of their own, but I love him for himself alone. I will never get rid of his child, and I will never let the tribe take it from me. But would Shizuka try? Would she so betray me? She was silent for so long, Shizuka sat up to see if she had fallen asleep. But Keide's eyes were open, staring at the green light beyond the doorway. "How long will the sickness last?" Keide said. "Not long, and you will not show for 3 or 4 months." "You know about these things. You said you have 2 sons?" "Yes, Arai's children." "Where are they?" "With my grandparents. He does not know where they are." "Hasn't he acknowledged them?" "He was interested enough in them until he married and had a son by his legal wife," Shizuka said. "Then, since my sons are older, he began to see them as a threat to his heir. I realized what he was thinking and took them away to a hidden village the Muto family have. He must never know where they are." Keide shivered despite the heat. "You think he would harm them?" "It would not be the first time a lord, a warrior, had done so," Shizuka replied bitterly. "That's messed up." "I am afraid of my father," Keide said. "What will he do to me?" Shizuka whispered, "Suppose Lord Shigeru, fearing Aida's treachery, insisted on a secret marriage at Terayama the day we visited the temple. Your kinswoman, Lady Mariyama, and her companion Sachi were the witnesses, but they did not live." "I cannot lie to the world in that way," Keide began. Shizuka hushed her. "You do not need to say anything. It has all been hidden. You are following your late husband's wishes. I will let it be known, as if inadvertently. You'll see how these men can't keep a secret among themselves." "What about documents? Proof?" "They were lost when Inuyama fell, along with everything else. The child will be Shigeru's. If it is a boy, it will be the heir to the Otori." "Smart." "That is too far in the future to think about," Keide said quickly. "Don't tempt fate." For Shigeru's real unborn child came into her mind, the one that had perished silently within its mother's body in the waters of the river at Inuyama. She prayed that its ghost would not be jealous. She prayed that her own child would live. Before the end of the week, the sickness had eased a little. Keide's breasts swelled, her nipples ached, and she became suddenly urgently hungry at unexpected times. But otherwise, she began to feel well, better than she had ever felt in her life. Her senses were heightened, almost as if the child shared its gifts with her. She noted with amazement how Shizuka's secret information spread through the men as, one by one, they began to address her as Lady Otori, in lowered voices and with averted eyes. The pretense made her uneasy, but she went along with it, not knowing what else to do. She studied the men carefully, trying to discern which was the member of the tribe who would protect Shizuka when the moment came. Shizuka had regained her cheerfulness and laughed and joked with them all equally, and they all responded, with different emotions ranging from appreciation to desire. but not one of them seemed to be particularly vigilant. Because they rarely looked at Kader directly, they would have been surprised at how well she came to know them. She could distinguish each of them in the dark by his tread or his voice, sometimes even by his smell. She gave them names: Scar, Squint, Silent, Long Arm. Long Arm's smell was of the hot spiced oil that the men used to flavour their rice. His voice was low, roughly accented. He had a look about him that suggested insolence to her, a sort of irony that annoyed her. He was of medium build, with a high forehead and eyes that bulged a little, and were so black he seemed to have no pupils. He had a habit of screwing them up and then sniffing with a flick of his head. His arms were abnormally long, and his hands big. If anyone were going to murder a woman, Kader thought, it would be him. In the second week, a sudden storm delayed them in a small village. Confined by the rain to the narrow, uncomfortable room, Kader was restless. She was tormented by thoughts of her mother. When she sought her, in her mind, she met nothing but darkness. She tried to recall her face, but could not. Nor could she summon up her sister's appearance. The youngest would be almost 9. If her mother, as she feared, was dead, she would have to take her place, be a mother to her sisters, run the household, overseeing the cooking, cleaning, weaving and sewing that were the year-round chores of women, taught to girls by their mothers and aunts and grandmothers. She knew nothing of such things. When she had been a hostage, she had been neglected by the Noguchi family. They had taught her so little. All she had learned was how to survive on her own in the castle, while she ran around like a maid, waiting on the armed men. Well, she would have to learn these practical skills. The child gave her feelings and instincts she had not known before, the instinct to take care of her people. She thought of the Shirakawa retainers, men like Shoji Kiyoshi and Amano Tenzo, who had come with her father when he had visited her at Noguchi Castle, and the servants of the house like Ayame, whom she had missed almost as much as her mother when she had been taken away at 7 years old. Was Ayame still alive? Would she still remember the girl she had looked after? Kader was returning, ostensibly married and widowed, another man dead on her account, and she was pregnant. What would her welcome be at her parents' home? The delay irritated the men too. She knew they were anxious to be done with this tiresome duty, impatient to return to the battles that were their real work, their life. They wanted to be part of Arai's victories over the Tohan in the east, not far away from the action in the west, looking after women. Arai was only one of them, she thought wonderingly. How had he suddenly become so powerful? What did he have that made these men, each of them adult, physically strong, want to follow and obey him? She remembered again his swift ruthlessness when he had cut the throat of the guard who had attacked her in Noguchi Castle. He would not hesitate to kill any one of these men in the same way, yet it was not fear that made them obey him. Was it a sort of trust in that ruthlessness, in that willingness to act immediately, whether the act was right or wrong? Would they ever trust a woman in that same in that way? Could she command men as he did? Would warriors like Shoji and Amano obey her? The rain stopped and they moved on. The storm had cleared the last of the humidity, and the days that followed were brilliant. The sky huge and blue above the mountain peaks, where every day the maples showed more red. The nights grew cooler, already with a hint of the frost to come. The journey wound on, and the days became long and tiring. Finally, one morning, Shizuka said, "This is the last pass. Tomorrow we will be at Shirakawa." They were descending a steep path, so densely carpeted with pine needles, the horse's feet made no noise. Shizuka was walking alongside Raku, while Kaede rode. Beneath the pines and cedars it was dark, but a little ahead of them the sun slanted through a bamboo grove, casting a dappled greenish light. "Have you been on this road before?" Kaede asked. "Many times. The first time was years ago. I was sent to Kumamoto to work for the Arai family when I was younger than you are now. The old lord was still alive then. He kept his sons under an iron rule, but the oldest, Daichi is his given name, still found ways to take the maids to bed. I resisted him for a long time. It's not easy, as you know, for girls living in castles. I was determined he would not forget me as quickly as he forgot most of them. And naturally I was also under instructions from my family, the Muto." "So you were spying on him all that time?" Kaede murmured. "Certain people were interested in the Arai allegiances, particularly in Daichi, before he went to the Noguchi." "Certain people meaning Aida?" "Of course. It was part of the settlement with the Sesshu clan after Yegahara. Arai was reluctant to serve Noguchi. He disliked Aida and thought Noguchi a traitor, but he was compelled to obey." "You worked for Aida?" "You know who I work for," Shizuka said quietly. "Always in the first instance for the Muto family, for the tribe. Aida employed many of the Muto at that time." "I'll never understand it," Kaede said. The alliances of her class were complex enough, with new ones being formed through marriage, old ones maintained by hostages, allegiances being broken by sudden insults or feuds or sheer opportunism. Yet these seemed straightforward compared to the intrigues of the tribe. The unpleasant thought that Shizuka only stayed with her on orders from the Muto family came to her again. "Are you spying on me?" Shizuka made a sign with her hand to silence her. The men rode ahead and behind, out of earshot. Kaede thought, "Are you?" Shizuka put her hand on the horse's shoulder. Kaede looked down on the back of her head, the white nape of her neck beneath the dark hair. Her head was turned away so Kaede could not see her face. Shizuka kept pace with the horse as it stepped down the slope, swinging its haunches to keep its balance. Kaede leant forwards and tried to speak quietly. "Tell me." Then the horse startled and plunged suddenly. Kaide's forward movement turned into a sudden downwards dive. I'm going to fall, she thought in amazement, and the ground rushed up towards her as she and Shizuka fell together. The horse was jumping sideways as it tried not to step on them. Keide was aware of more confusion, a greater danger. "Shizuka!" she cried. "Keep down," the girl replied, and pushed her to the ground, but Keide struggled to look. There were men on the path ahead, 2 of them, wild bandits by the look of them, with drawn swords. She felt for her knife, longed for a sword or a pole at least, remembered her promise, all in a split second before she heard the thrum of a bowstring. An arrow flew past the horse's ears, making it jump and buck again. There was a brief cry, and one man fell at her feet, blood streaming from where the arrow had pierced his neck. The second man faltered for a moment. The horse plunged sideways, knocking him off balance. He swung his sword in a desperate sideways slice at Shizuka. Then Long Arm was on him, coming up under the blow with almost supernatural speed, his sword's tip seeming to find its own way into the man's throat. The men in front turned and ran back. Those behind came milling forward. Shizuka had caught the horse by the bridle and was calming it. Long Arm helped Keide to her feet. "Don't be alarmed, Lady Otori," he said in his rough accent, the smell of pepper oil strong on his breath. "They were just brigands." Just brigands, Keide thought. They had died so suddenly and with so much blood. Brigands, maybe, but in whose pay? The men took their weapons and drew lots for them, then threw the bodies in the undergrowth. It was impossible to tell if any one of them had anticipated the attack, or was disappointed in its failure. They seemed to show more deference to Long Arm, and she realized they were impressed by the swiftness of his reaction and his fighting skills. But otherwise, they acted as if it were a normal occurrence, one of the hazards of travel. 1 or 2 of them joked with Shizuka that the bandits wanted her as a wife, and she answered in the same vein, adding that the forest was full of such desperate men, but even a bandit had more chance with her than any of the escort. "I would never have picked your defender," Keide said later. "In fact, quite the opposite. He was the one I suspected would kill you with those big hands of his." Shizuka laughed. "He's quite a clever fellow, and a ruthless fighter. It's easy to misjudge or underestimate him. You were not the only person surprised by him. Are you afraid at that moment?" Keide tried to remember. "No, mainly because there was no time. I wished I had a sword." Shizuka said, "You have the gift of courage." "It's not true. I'm often afraid." "No one would ever guess," Shizuka murmured. They had come to an inn in a small town on the border of the Shirakawa domain. Keide had been able to bathe in the hot spring, and she was now in her night attire, waiting for the evening meal to be brought. Her welcome at the inn had been perfunctory, and the town itself made her uneasy. There seemed to be little food, and the people were sullen and dispirited. She was bruised down one side from the fall, and she feared for the child. She was also nervous about meeting her father. Would he believe she had married Lord Otori? She could not imagine his fury if he discovered the truth. "I don't feel very brave at the moment," she confessed. Shizuka said, I'll massage your head. You look exhausted. But even as she leant back and enjoyed the feelings of the girl's fingers against her scalp, Kade's misgivings increased. She remembered what they had been talking about at the moment of the attack. You'll be home tomorrow, Shizuka said, feeling her tension. The journey is nearly over. Shizuka, answer me truthfully. What's the real reason you stay with me? Is it to spy on me? Who employs the Muto now? No one employs us at the moment. Aida's downfall has thrown the whole of the 3 countries into confusion. Arai is saying he'll wipe out the tribe. We don't know yet if he's serious, or if he will come to his senses and work with us. In the meantime, my uncle, Kenji, who admires Lady Shirakawa greatly, wants to be kept informed of her welfare and her intentions. And of my child, Kade thought, but did not speak it. Instead she asked, My intentions? You are heir to one of the richest and most powerful domains of the West, Maruyama, as well as to your own estate of Shirakawa. Whoever you marry will become a key player in the future of the 3 countries. At the moment, everyone assumes you will maintain the alliance with Arai, strengthening his position in the West, while he settles the Otori question. Your destiny is closely linked with the Otori clan, and with the Middle Country too. I may marry no one, Kade said, half to herself. And in that case, she was thinking, why should I not become a key player myself? Indeed, that is an excellent question. Chat. I might have a short stream today, mainly because events have made me a little bit tired. And also, this next chapter is damn long. So yes, I will have to pick it up tomorrow night. Assuming, thank you, Kitty. You're a sweetheart. Yes, so I'm hoping to stream tomorrow night. Yeah, just not sure what's happening with Grandma yet. So yeah, this is another reason why I need to set up a Discord. But yeah, I'll if anything changes, I guess I'll put it in my about page. Actually, did I ever modify my schedule? Hope not. Ports. About. Schedule. Ah, good. Schedule still the same. Yeah, so a bit of a short stream today. Let's see who is on. Ooh, Emmy Cherry's on. And maybe we'll just raid Emmy. Okay, I'm going to give another... I gave a shout out to Mal earlier, who is a very cool bean. Yeah, I think we'll just raid into Emmy Cherry. Emmy's a lovely streamer. She's mainly just chatting and talking about random things and poetry and stuff like that. So yeah, kind of a very chill stream, very appropriate to read into. Should be here tomorrow, but AV has her induction into Spanish National Honor Society. Congratulations! Send her my congratulations tonight, so I'll have whatever repercussions from that. Okay, might take it out of you. Okay, I get that. Yes, I need some more sleep. Alright, copy the raid command and we'll go raid Emmy. Raid's been created, okay. Give your mouse a jiggle. Join the raid. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Raid and lurk as you'll finish the comp thing. Okay, Kitty, yeah, I'm just going to... I right click on my computer and then go manage. But, yeah. Scooped. Awesome. Yeah, just find the drive in drive management and then assign it a letter and start moving some stuff across. Thank you everyone for joining me. Hopefully I'll be back tomorrow night. Same time, 9 PM Australian Eastern Standard Time. Good. Yeah. And I'll see you, hopefully, tomorrow. Okay. Right click on... If you got stuff in documents or videos, you can change the location of that Windows folder by right clicking on it, going properties. And then it just does the move automatically if you want. Alrighty. Quick tech support.